Now you can't escape your own actions. So it's going to come back to you. So it's important to become aware that, of these things and actually start to see them, which is why it's important to start to see them through the mirror of your mind. It is a privilege and an honor and an absolute joy to be in this physical realm, to be able to have these sense gratifications, but don't be bound by it. If I could give you the keys to the kingdom, universe, right? And if I was to give you that, you have to do something for it. Would you do it? I'll give you the keys to the universal kingdom. Would you do the work that it takes to get these keys?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Martial Mind Power podcast. And you have myself, Jatinder with Sifu Lak, and we're going to take you through some wisdom bombs and just pick a topic for this week and see where it leads us. So, Sifu Lak, how are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Been looking forward to this. So, ready to go.
Awesome. Cool. Shall we refer back to the amazing The Art of Thinking Without Thinking book to pick our topic for this week? And do you want to shout out do the honors?
Go on, keep going. Stop.
Okay, so your mind is a mirror to the universe. Oh, and that's page 516. That's one of the longer chapters. Just quickly flicking through the page on that.
Let me just show everybody the image that goes with that, right? So that's the image.
So just for those who are listening, it's kind of like a misty kind of lake with that little rock island in the corner, funky clouds, almost like a sunset / sunrise, that kind of image. So imagine that.
Exactly. All right. So in traditional fashion, right, rather than kind of unraveling the koan right from the beginning, I think what we've been doing is asking JT what comes to him, and when I say what comes to him, again, remember, this is the art of thinking without thinking. So you're not meant to think about what it means or what kind of teaching it's the koan's trying to give you. You're supposed to listen to that kind of that inner experience that's happening in your core in that split second, and therein lies the truth of what that teaching is meant to convey. So go ahead, Mr. Jatinder.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, this is the beauty about these koans, right? Koans, it's they do get you thinking, even though you're supposed to not be thinking. You.
Well, that's the difficulty, right? I'm just trying to earmark this page so that I can get to it because the book's trying to close. I was just about to say that's really the beauty about this. The whole book is that it really is trying to teach you to get in tune with your subtle self, or what we would call you have yourself, which is this as you recognize it, right? Or you could actually refer to this as the not self, is what you see but actually isn't really you. So this would be yourself, and then you've got your not self, which is actually your true self, which is your subtle body, your spirit, and that really is far deeper part of your essence. And that's really what you're trying to express in this lifetime. And when that happens, then you're really in alignment with your original truth, as I call it. Your mind, your body, so your body, your mind, and your spirit all align. And then you can live in true authenticity, not through fear, but through love, right? Why? Because you're fully aligned and you're fully centered. And it's important to listen to that, and it's important to feel that, and it's important to sometimes even see that, right? You'll have your not your physical sensory experience, but you'll have your subtle sensory experience, right? That's really what we're trying to tap into here. So when you hear a koan, right, it's you got to get yourself into that kind of meditative space. We have a little bit of banter and then go straight into it, okay, which really kind of makes it hard for the average person because they're not in tune with that subtlety of themselves. That's the subtle aspect of themselves. But if you've been practicing self-mastery and self-realization, you'll be better attuned to yourself, and you'll be able to kind of really hone in on that experience a lot better. And so that brings us back to you then, JT, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully that while I was rambling on, hopefully that gave you a moment to think about your mind is a mirror to the universe.
No, when I read it, what first came into my mind was I used to say to people a long time ago when I was in the workspace, I used to say, what you see in others is a reflection of what you see in yourself. And what you see in yourself is a reflection you see what you see in others, right? So, and I used to share that with people because sometimes people would just react to whatever was going on around them. And it'd be like, hang on a minute, why did you react to that? What are you seeing? What are you seeing that's bringing that charge on you, right? So when we said, your mind is a mirror to the universe, what came up for me was that association to how are we viewing whatever we seem to be going on in our mind is what we're almost like filtering or viewing as a mirror reflection out there, and vice versa.
Yeah.
How am I on track with that one?
No, very good. It's very good. And you're on the right lines, essentially. Your mind is a mirror to the universe. Now, the idea here is to help you to understand that you are in everything and everything is in you. So when you say your mind is a mirror to the universe, your mind is seeing that which is in the universe and that the universe is within you. Because if you can see what's out there, then that what's out there is inside you because you can see it, right? Let me put that another way, right? For those people that are watching or listening to this podcast, the voice and the video, all the video and the audio are being received by your auditory and visual senses, and they are, they're transferred. The message is transferred to your brain, and the brain then kind of makes meaning out of that, right? All of that is happening way inside you, okay? Even though the sound and the images are happening outside of you, you only ever understand that once it's inside you. So you've got your receptors, your eyes for the visual, your ears for the auditory, and all of those messages get transferred to your brain, and your brain kind of makes a story out of that, something that you can attribute meaning to, right? So that experience is only ever going to happen in you, but it happened outside of you. So where is it really happening? Is it happening inside you? Is it happening outside of you? Or is it both? And the answer to that is both, right? So I'd like to make a little reference to a book by Michael Talbot, and it's called Holographic Universe. And Holographic Universe is an amazing book. Honestly, it's fantastic. And so Michael Talbot actually spoke about the real experiments, neurological experiments that were taking place on live subjects, okay, living human beings. And what they discovered was if they operated on somebody's brain, and let's say they had to cut, a portion of the brain out, on the most part, they didn't lose any of the memory, any of the functions that they would normally have. right? There were people that in those experiments that had to have major parts of their brains removed, and they continued operating as normal. Now you think, well, that's a pile of shit, right? Well, actually, you need to read the book to understand that this is references to actual operations that have been done, that have been recorded, and empirical studies that have been done around this subject. And it ultimately boils down to this, right? If you take somebody's brain and you cut a quarter out of it, they'll still have a whole function. If you take someone's brain and cut it in half, they still have full function. And the idea was boiled down to, if you take a holographic slide, right? Let's just say like it's a photographic slide. If you take that slide and then project light through it, you'll get the image. But if you cut half of the slide, you only get half the image. But in a holographic slide, right, if you cut it in half, right, and throw half away, you can create the whole image from half of the actual slide, right? If you cut it into quarter, you can create the whole image from the quarter of the slide. If you cut it into an eighth, you could create the whole image from an eighth of the slide. If you cut it into a 16th, and you get the idea. Doesn't matter how small you cut it into, you can still create the whole hologram. Okay, so what this is kind of alluding to, the fact is that, everything can be created from even the minuter that's left, okay? No matter how big or large it is. Another practical example, so that's the Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. I strongly encourage anybody that's interested in this subject and has any doubts around this to read that for themselves, okay? And you'll be amazed by some of the studies and the outcomes around that. All the references are in there. So it really is a must read. Now, another example I'd like to share is, imagine you've got a dining room, okay, a beautiful, lavish dining room. Let's just say it's this nice Georgian, grandiose dining room, and you've got this in the middle of the table. You've got a really beautiful bouquet of flowers, right? And you go there and spray water all over the flowers, okay? And now all of a sudden you've got loads of little droplets of water, right, on the flowers and leaves, okay? Now, there's another idea, right, which will help you understand your mind is a mirror to the universe, is that if you look at a droplet of water, okay, if you look at a droplet of water, what you'll notice is, if you look closely enough, if you look at the surface of the droplet, that and depending on the angle that you look at it from, the rest of the room is reflected in that droplet of water. Okay.
Yep.
Right. That whole room is on that droplet of water. Right. Right.
Mm.
And that all of a sudden starts to paint a whole new picture on how you look at the world. Right. Or how you look at the universe. Right. And this koan is trying to give you an understanding on that. Okay, just like the hologram can create everything, right? No matter how small you cut it down, the droplet on a leaf on a bouquet placed in the middle of a dining room, right, can reflect everything in that room. Obviously subject to what it's exposed to, but everything that it's exposed to within that space will be reflected in it. Right. And that's what this koan is trying to allude to. So how does that have a bearing on you as a spiritual being in a human body? Well, the spirit is a bit like the droplet, right? Except that droplet can see like X-ray vision, not just anything that's inside you, but everything through you, outside of you as well. Right? You imagine that. Imagine you've got an X-ray vision droplet water bang in the center of your core, and it can see and pick up everything everywhere, through walls, through metal, through lead, through anything, right? It's even better than Superman, right? 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 And that's really the idea. And all of a sudden, you start to recognize, when you start to really tune into that droplet deep within you, that actually your core is a reflection of everything that's happening around you, outside of you, inside of you. Okay. Therefore, you are a part of that, and that is a part of you. All right. And let me just take a practical example, right? We're in a day and age where transport, fossil fuel transport, is obviously all over the world, is mobilizing the economies, people moving around, people now working not locally, but, further away. So there's a lot of mobility through cars powered by fossil fuels, and you've got all the pollution. Okay. That pollution is going into the environment, right? And what's happening? Everything everyone does is affecting everyone. Right? It's affecting the air we breathe. It's affecting the toxins that are in our food chain, whether it's in our seafood, because those toxins are being absorbed by the seas and oceans and the rivers. The toxins are being absorbed by all our crops across all the farms in the world, right? And so on. Just to give you an example, the toxins are being absorbed by the clouds, right? So when they travel and the rain falls, guess what? The toxins are falling with the rain, and the water then permeates everything else that it touches. So no matter what happens, everything we do is affecting everyone else, right? So now all of a sudden, now you've got to ask the question, who's in who? Now you may, chuckle out, I think, that's a bit of a pervy question, but no, everything everyone does has an impact on everybody else, because everyone is connected. No one is disconnected from one another, no matter how much you like to think that you are independent. You're an independent sovereign nation, right? And you're right, completely impermeable to anything else, because you're breathing the same air and you're eating the same food. No matter, even if you're paying for expensive food, right? It's still open to the environment, still open to the air. It's still getting water from some water source, which is shared, right, and provided by Mother Earth, right? Now, if we're polluting that, then guess what? It's in there, right? Therefore, it's going to come into us, right? One of the most recent examples was plastics in our oceans. Okay. Now, let's for a moment forget about how the plastics got there. Okay. Right. But there are plastics in the ocean, and our fish are eating it. Our seafood, should I say, sea life are eating it. And then when the trawlers go and get, catch a fish and the seafood, guess what? They're finding plastics inside them, right? Guess what? We, as human beings, those of us that eat fish, go now eating fish, and now you end up with plastic in your body, right? Somebody might have thought, this plastic bottle, I don't really care for this, throw it away, right? Would have ended up in the ocean, then end up back in you, right? Now you can't escape your own actions, right? So it's going to come back to you. So it's important to become aware that, of these things, and actually start to see them, which is why it's important to start to see them through the mirror of your mind. And that mirror of the mind is really, really powerful, right? But you have to start becoming conscious about it, right? You have to stop.
Definitely. That reminds me of that saying that what you do to others, you do to yourself. What you do to yourself, you do to others, right?
Absolutely.
It's so deeper in that context, because it's like you said, it's almost like being one unit, like we're part of this big matrix, and it's literally moving like this. And actually, one of the best examples I can give you is that comes to mind is if you imagine the sea, and you get one of those, those plastic balls. The kids play. They got their kid thing. They're full of those plastic balls, kind of thing, and they play around it. Yeah. If you take you take those plastic balls, you put them on the water, and as the water goes up and down, the balls are going up and down with it, right?
Yeah.
And you could put other stuff in, then they move, and then you could see it kind of just rippling out and having an effect and influence on other things. It's almost like that. It's like we're kind of like a drop. The ripple goes out. We are influencing things around us. And it's like you said, somebody thinks they're throwing some plastic in the water and it's just come back around. And it may not be you in particular, but it's come around to humanity, your potential peer, that it's had an effect on. But it's that thing about having a knock-on effect. So that relationship we have it's exactly what you said. It's in relation to other things. We're not separate from it.
That's right. That's right. And just to further this notion is that if your mind is a mirror to the universe, it's reflecting. Therefore, if it's going to reflect something, it's going to have to receive it first, right? It can receive everything that's out there, right? So no matter what's out there, you can tap into it all. Now, there are people, and everyone's heard of psychics and mediums and so on. How do they do what they do? Well, let me let you into a little bit of a secret, right? Everybody is psychic. Everybody is psychic. And more than half of your thoughts every day are not yours.
It's like a radio antenna picking up a noise.
It's like a radio antenna that's tuning in to your guides, these subtle voices from your spirit guides that are with you all along, right? Trying to guide you not to make the mistakes from past existences, right? So you can evolve, right? That's what's happening, right? So when you feel something, especially when you're trying to make a decision about something that might have consequences, should I do this? Should I not do this? Listen to this, right? Your intuition's already answering that question for you. That intuition is not you, okay? Let me put it that way, right? Sometimes, right, that intuition is somebody telling you, okay? So it might be your spirit guides talking to you about and giving you guidance on the way you should go with this, right? Because they already know from your past experiences. You already made a pact with them before you came on Mother Earth, right? That this spirit guide will be there throughout this physical existence to guide you, not to make the mistakes that you made before, so you can ascend, all right? And that's a massive part of it, right? So what's happening there? One, you're tuning in and listening to the universe, and then secondly, right, you've got thoughts coming to you that you don't own. You did not manifest, you did not create, but they were given to you because they're going to serve you at that moment in time, right? So all of a sudden, now you're probably questioning, oh, hold on a minute. I did think something, but did I really think it? And then you doubt, right? So you throw it away because you think, well, I didn't think that. No, you didn't think it, but it came through as a thought because that's what you think that is. But let's just consider it thought. Some of those 50% or more thoughts are messages, but you never recognize them as messages. You just recognize them as your thoughts. You thought you created them, and those that you didn't create, that you received and you recognized and then doubted them because you didn't instigate them, you now throw away, you reject them because you doubt what it is. This is a massive topic.
No, definitely. I was just going to lightly touch on that because, some of the listeners might be thinking, well, how do you listen in or what's going on there? But I think one of the examples that pops to mind is that they say apparently that as your kids, you're more in tune with this and you are actually, tuning into these frequencies and whatnot that are around you. But as you get older, if you start to share your ideas, sometimes you get shut down by people and just things around you. And to a stage where we stop listening. So it's when we stop listening is when we start to just then see it as potentially like noise in the background. And there's things coming through which we're not necessarily now allowing it to come through, but they were there. And we have a reflective moment where we start to think, hang on a minute, what was that all about?
Yeah.
And it's like the famous words our colleague Marilyn Devnish says, it says, notice what you notice. There's like these little moments when you think, what was that? What's that about? You might be having a conversation with someone. They mention a book, and for some reason that book resonates with you. Somebody mentions something, you think, oh yeah, I got to look into that. Is these little subtle things in the background that can happen that we stop listening to, and that's what you're referring to there as well, in regards to like the information that could be coming through, because it is available to everyone. It's just, you know, we are like antennas, we are like radios, aerials picking up on things, which we've learned to tune out basically. And then it's a case of tuning back into it, right? So that was one thing. And just another thing on that came to mind was, if you're into sci-fi, you know, when they go somewhere, they talk about phase shift. So it's like a frequency that you're running at. And if that phase is slightly different, you can potentially walk through something because you're not now in this running at the same frequency. So what's there to say that there are other things around us that are not in the same phase as us? So they're still there, they're still going on, but we're not hearing it, right? And the last thing on that was that what you said about the bombardment of information. Like when we go through our day, we're being bombarded by so much things, so much on our senses. There's noise, sound, temperature, all sorts of stuff. But then there's also static. There's, you know, do you ever wonder about Wi-Fi signals? You know, how is Wi-Fi going through the air? Are we even picking up on anything that comes through that, right? It makes you wonder, right? So that constant bombardment of information, and your brain and your body basically learns to tune it out, because it's it can potentially become overwhelming if you are like sensing everything at once, right? So there is like a protection mechanism in place which can help people, from my understanding, that could also be kicking in. So yeah, I just wanted to share a few of those kind of thoughts on it, just in case people think Alex is going a bit woo here. What's he talking about, right?
Well, you know, woo-woo is good, man. And I'll tell you why woo-woo is good, right? Because this is about, you know, if you've been lucky to be given sight and to be woke, then it's hard to go back to sleep. And then you've got an obligation to help others wake up and to see what you've seen already. So this is what this podcast is all about, right? And that's done with high intention, so that, you know, people can step into the true, authentic high self, really align with the spiritual essence. Again, answering that question, and this is the biggest question of all questions, is what was I put on Mother Earth to do, right? Why were you born?
Why am I here, right? That's the kind of question.
Why am I here? And you can phrase that question in many different ways, but in the end, the question is the question, okay? Now, it's the question.
The question is, you are here.
Well, that's the answer. The question is, right, the same. The question is, why are you here? What were you born to do? Why did you come to Mother Earth, and how are you meant to serve, right? And everyone's got a different way of serving. And it's interesting that the points that you raised, right, to demystify the woo-woo-ness, right, is one, the baby. Now it's interesting that you talked about the baby. Now the baby is, imagine the spirit, right, is the droplet, right, within the baby, right? Guess what happens? The spirit is all pervasive, right? And the baby doesn't know the body. The spirit, the body grows around the spirit, okay? Right? Not the other way around, okay? The spirit is omnipresent. It's always going to be there, right? And even when the body dies, it's going to exist, right? So therefore, what happens, right? Your spirit is born your spirit descends into a baby's, into a fetus, right? And then it grows, you know, your baby's given birth, and then the baby will grow. And it has to learn how to recognize its limbs. A baby doesn't know how to use its limbs, right? Why? Because it's just a spirit, right? It's a spirit that's not yet learned how to connect with its body. It doesn't know about physical sense gratification. It's, you know, 5 senses, or 6, but we won't go into that right now. And it doesn't know that. right? So over time,
that's one of the reasons why they say babies cry as well, isn't it? Because it's just being bombarded with so much in one go that the body is like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, the body is one of the bombardments to the spirit, right? And then you've just got everything else. Now the spirit of a baby, you see babies, they'll, sometimes they just fixate themselves in the corner of a room. You're like, what is the child looking at? Well, some of you may know children that can see energies, that can see spirits, that can even play. As a child, some children have invisible friends, right? I think we do children a massive disfavor if we completely ignore the fact that actually there could be a spirit there that you can't see because you've grown into your body but out your spirit. That's what's happening over time. As you grow, you become so attached to the sense gratification, the physical sense gratification, that the spirit gets buried within the body and it becomes disconnected from it. So those of you that are on the journey of self-mastery, and more importantly, the higher stages of that, which is the self-realization, is what you're trying to do is, one, you're trying to master the body, then you're trying to master the mind, then you're trying to master the emotions. And then what happens? Then you're trying to bring it back so that actually the spirit can come out and flourish and express itself through the body. Ultimately, that's what we need to do, is bring the realignment back together. But this whole thing swings from spirit. You're born, right? You're born, right? And the body comes on top, and then you swing all the way to physicality because you love it. You love eating food. You love all the flavors. You love all the different types of drinks and things that you can experience. You love different sensations you get when you go on a roller coaster ride. You love the feeling you get when you're out in the sun. You love the sound of the sea. You love the different types of clothes. You love different types of entertainment, music. You love watching movies, everything. All of this sense gratification is happening. It takes you away from spirit and you get stuck over here, right? And then one day, usually midlife, you think, what the fuck, man, right? What am I here for? What am I doing here? And then you start asking that question that says, okay, let's bring them together now, right? And then you align, right? That's what's happening. Otherwise, what happens is you don't have a midlife crisis, you have a midlife reflection. Your mind is a mirror to the universe, is exactly that. It's a midlife reflection. It's you saying, why am I here? I have spent the first 20 years, right? Let's just say, you have a clean run. You do all your preschool business, you do all your nursery business, you do all your infant school, junior school, you do your secondary school, you do your high school, you do your college, whatever you want to call it, you do your university, right? Let's just say the first 20 odd years, right? You just spend in education, just trying to learn how to cultivate your faculties so you can communicate effectively. You can learn some skills. You can cultivate your talent, right? And just become functional, right? Then the next 20 years, right, up until kind of, let's just say midlife, whenever that midlife is going to be, right? You spend. You go into industry, you set up a business, you get a job, you go do something, you start earning money, you start making a living, you buy a nice house, or you rent a house, or you buy a car or a motorbike or whatever it is that you do, right? And then you enjoy that for the next 20 years, right? Or 30 years or whatever it is, right? And you get to this point where like, all right, well, I've got everything now, right? And now what? Right? What have I actually achieved in my life? Because everything was just focused on me, right? And that's when you ask that question, right?
And some people say, "Is this it?"
Yeah, exactly, right? And do you know what? It's and also to add to that, you might have even got married and had kids along the way, right? So you've got responsibilities on top, right? And that question arises: what have I achieved in this life? If I, and then you might even start to think, well, what, if I was on my deathbed. And I ask myself the question, what have I done with this existence? The answer to that for most people is I've done fuck all. Yeah. And I've got to be brutal about this because most people have not done anything, right? There are obviously some that have done a lot. Okay. But in the majority case, right, this is a society. This modern world we live in is about me, me, me. What do I need to do to make myself happy, right? And it's all sense gratification, sense gratification, sense gratification. And as part of that sense gratification is egocentricity, right? What can I do to make myself look better than everyone else? And it's bullshit. It's just an illusion. This is what we call Maya. Maya is an illusion, right? People in Asia think Maya refers to
Money.
Right?
Yeah.
Actually, it's anything illusory, and materiality is just part of that. Okay. So when you ask that question, why am I here? Then what you're doing is you're saying, okay, now I need to realign those two sides, the spirit and the physicality, and align it. And to align it, what you're saying is actually you're trying to recognize spirit. So when people join hands, right, the true meaning of this is I see you, I see your spirit, right? I recognize you. Avatar, the movie Avatar, again, I think whoever wrote the script to that had sight. Yeah, they were an awakened spirit. They had sight, right? Because when they wrote that, when the avatars met each other, they said, I see you. Amazing. Where the hell did they get that from, right? So there's some magic in that. Okay, when you start to recognize these are way above macro things. Okay, this is universal cosmic level, not just ideas, your cosmic self that you're trying to realign to. When you say your mirror is when your mind is a mirror to the universe, one of the things that I'm trying to say is use your mind to bring it together. Use your mind to see the universe, right? Sorry, use your mind to see the spirit. Use your mind to see your materiality or your physicality, right? And then bring it back into harmony, right? So it's all there. And when that happens, something magical happens, right? But it's not an easy journey, and it's not an easy journey because it requires work. That word, that dirty word, work, right?
You
because
have to do the work. Yeah.
Work means you need to do something, right? Which you may not necessarily always like. Okay. But let's say if I could give you the keys to the kingdom, universe, right? And if I was to give you that, you have to do something for it. Would you do it? I'll give you the keys to the universal kingdom. Would you do the work that it takes to get these keys? And most people initially would say, yeah, but I've got something else to do, right? So this is why only people that put in the effort deserve it, right? You've really got to put the work in, right? And even if we look at, the enlightened masters, right? The ascended masters of past, like say Jesus Christ, we're looking at Krishna, we're looking at Buddha, and so on, right? Guru Nanak and many more. Okay, Mahavtar Babaji, Paramahansa Yogananda ji, and again, the list goes on. Beyond that, we've got Shri Yukrishna ji, we got Lahiri Mahashaya ji, you got Mahavtar Babaji, and I could go on and on and on about ascended masters and enlightened masters and so on. Guess what? They didn't get it overnight. They didn't just get hit by an apple fall off a tree while they're sitting underneath it and they think, eureka! All of a sudden, they're enlightened. No, they had to sit, meditate.
Well, there's only one person who had an apple fall in his head and got eureka moment, right? And look what he did in the world.
Well, actually, I kind of mashed up two stories there, right? The Eureka story was about displacement theory when that old chap was sitting in the bath and realized the surface of the water arose, right? So that's your Eureka moment. And obviously Newton sitting under the tree and the apple falling on his head, right?
Gravity.
So, but yeah, you see what I mean?
Talk about wake up call, right? Ooh, smacked on his head. Whoa.
Yeah, but the thing is, that was just a realization, right? That's a realization of something that's in front of us, right? And as you mentioned, you said it earlier, right? You said Marilyn Dever, she's a dear friend of ours, and she's an amazing, I want to say alchemist, right? She's a neuroscientist, a self-help coach.
I call her the Bruce Lee of personal development.
I call her Magic Marilyn.
Magic Marilyn, yeah. She is magic as well.
Yeah, no, honestly. And here's the thing. I forgot the point I was going to make now. What's that about? Come on.
Magic Marilyn.
Oh, I was going to say, it's just like what she says. See what you see, right? That was the point I was trying to notice. Yeah. The point I was trying to make. See what you see, notice what you notice. Because that's what Newton did in that moment in time when the apple fell out. He just noticed what he noticed, right? And sometimes we just need to do that. Today, in modern day society, notice what you notice is mindfulness. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's just to become mindful of what's happening in and around you, right? And then you got the further state, which is to go deeper. And that's what we spoke about in our previous podcast when we talked about Divine Dive, right? So you start to get hopefully you start to understand that your mind, not your brain, your mind is something much bigger than you can quantify. On top of that, you mentioned quantum states, essentially, where when energies change, you can pass through that. Now, sometimes they call portals, sometimes they call, I was watching a study on quantum states, right? Quantum states being states of physicality, the world we live in, right? And non-physicality, right? Which is states that exist in vibratory realms that we can't exist as physical beings, right? But we exist as spiritual beings, right? As in another energetic body, all right? When I refer to spirit, I'm referring to our energetic body, all right? So if we are energy, then here we exist in a physical body. Our energy can be seen, it can be touched, and so on. But beyond that, if we exist in an energetic space where the physical body can't exist, our corresponding energetic body will persist, right? Because we already spoke about how energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It changes from one form to another, but our energy always exists. So therefore, if we now refer to that as spirit, right, you'll understand how spirit can survive, right, and thrive in a physical realm as well as a non-physical realm. And so they're actually called quantum states, and the scientists, quantum physicists, are also discovered. I forgot exactly the reference to it, but I want to say quantum states where you can be physical, non-physical, right? And they're kind of like just on the cusp of this topic that we're talking about, is transitioning from physical state to a non-physical state, and therefore quantum travel as a consequence of that, right? Because if you're going to quantum travel, you're basically saying that you want to travel from one space to another space, right, where time doesn't exist, and that may be Back to the Future, or what I mean. And again, a nice little wordplay, but hopefully you get the idea. And the last thing you mentioned, right, about invisible waves. Now, we're talking about energy, right? We're talking about more than half of your thoughts are not yours, right? Well, let's just face it, right? You pick up your mobile phone, right? You get a call on that bad boy, right? You talk to somebody on the other side, could be a friend, could be your partner, could be a family member, right? Whoever it is, right? But somebody's on the end of that, and they're alive and kicking and talking to you at that moment in time, right? Can you see the waves? No. Can you see them? I mean, obviously, if you did a FaceTime, you can see them. But I'm saying, let's just think.
Can be some cheeky person who says that, oh, FaceTime.
Right? But let's just say it's just an audio call for now, right? Can you see them? No, but you know they exist, right? In other words, you take it for granted, right? That even though there's invisible signals that come into your phone that transferring the voice audio from the caller or the person that you're speaking to on your phone and vice versa, you know that you can have a conversation with another live human being, right? So what's to say that, you can't receive messages from somebody without a physical body?
Let's just look at that for 1 second, like what you just said there, right? You're picking up your phone, right? There's a signal going from your phone potentially to the nearest mosque, right? Signal. It could be going through your Wi-Fi, through your internet, right? It's going through wires. It's going through the exchange servers. It's going through millions. The universe knows where it's going. It's going through such a big, massive network of things, going through satellites, potentially bouncing off satellites in space, bouncing off other satellites, coming down, and then getting to you on the other side, right? Yeah. That's insane. Like, this is what humans have done, right? So imagine that if we can operate in this realm, what else is there that we don't even know about yet?
Let me ask you a question, right? If we can create this, right, where the hell do you think we got this idea from in the first place?
Exactly, man.
Right?
Exactly.
If we were, let's just say, using the art of thinking, right, then forget about it. We wouldn't even have this technology we're talking on now. You need to have the art of thinking without thinking, right? Why? Because these ideas came to people in their dreams.
Yeah.
Right. These ideas came to people while they were idling. Now, that's not a bad thing. That means you're completely still and receptive to what comes to you from the universe. You put a question out there, you will get an answer. I will promise you, right? And I don't make promises, but I promise you, if you become attuned to the universe will answer all your questions, right? But you need to put yourself in the right space with the right energies. Now, there's a lot more there, right? That's a loaded statement, right? But just to give you an idea that nothing that's ever been created has been invented by us, right? It's been given to us from something that's far more intelligent, right? Which we refer to as a universe, the cosmos. In one of our conversations, we talked about the ocean of consciousness, one consciousness, and so on. All of that intelligence resides outside as insiders, and we can tap into it. And if you really want, the fact of the matter is, there's far more intelligence and ideas that you can receive than you'll be physically capable of actually creating within this lifetime itself. I mean, take Elon Musk, for example, right? Fantastic guy, right? Amazing visionary, right? He's got ideas where he wants to keep growing and do something and give something back to humankind. Now he's, into SpaceX and all the rest. Do you know what? And the guy hardly sleeps, right? Yeah. But I can guarantee you, right? He takes time out to just sit with it. And the most recent comment I heard, right, that he stated was, "I don't want to be a CEO." Why? Because he'd rather tap into these ideas, right, and contribute these ideas and have somebody make it for him. Because if you can think it, you can achieve it. Honestly, you can find or create the technology and the tools that you need to create whatever it is that you can dream of. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I was a little child, one of the first things I wanted to be was cartoonist. And back then, everything was penned, right? And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we had software that could animate all of this? So you draw it once and just animate the character. Guess what? That's how they do it now. Yeah. And I used to have all of these thoughts about a lot of these things that have actually been manifested and created by technology, right? By technologists, right? Over the last 30 years. I'm just talking 30, maybe 35 years, right? Yeah. And that's a short space of time. And then you shared a video the other day with that Praveen chap, right, who studies temples in India, and how there's enough information within carvings on stone that are way over thousand years old that show you that a lot of the technologies, the advanced technologies that we have today, they had back then. And some of these stone carvings are way over 1,000 years old, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 6,000 years old, right? In temples in India, all across India, even in Asia, some even in the Middle East and so on, right? And you think about this and you think, well, hold on a minute, right? Are we just trying to catch up with some technology that we had back then, that somehow in some apocalypse just disappeared, right? And then we had to kind of recover that somehow. So, we are not the most advanced beings that have ever existed. I'm sure there were beings that were more advanced than us before. And we're just on one part of that cycle of, the rise and then the decline and the rise and the decline of that superintelligence. And tap into it. You'll be amazed to what you connect to, what comes to you.
Absolutely. I mean, this is insane. I mean, there's like so much more that we can go into on this. Like you're talking about the baby, the way the baby experiences life. It's almost like you could say that it's like a VR helmet, that we're getting trapped in this VR helmet and then we're just living through that filters and whatnot, right? You spoke about chemical addictions. We're coming into the body and getting addicted to everything that's around here because it is chemical based. Because if you look at any emotion that gets created, there's a chemical reaction in the body, endorphins, there's all these serotonin and all these kind of different things that go on in the mind, right? So there's so much that we can talk about, but it's going to be a bit crazy if we do that. But I just wanted to quickly have a few more practical examples of this reflection element, right? And one thing that came to mind was just, if anyone's listening, thinking, how else can I utilize this? I'll give you a perfect example of an experience of mine where before I got into doing videos and podcasting and all these kind of things, I had the fear, like to do it. I was like, oh, what if I go there? What am I going to talk about? What people are going to think? All these things were coming up to my mind, right? And it stopped me from doing this, yeah? And one day I was listening to a podcast or something, and somebody brought up that whole conversation that if that's going on, what is it? You're just afraid you're being afraid of being judged, right? So let me ask you a question: where are you judging others? So this is what this person said, right? And I stopped for a moment. I thought, holy moly, right? Am I judging other people when I watch a YouTube video and I'm listening to podcasts and whatnot? And am I then seeing that reflection within me that is stopping me from wanting to do this stuff? And I realized that, hang on a minute, I think I am. I'm being a bit judgmental here. I might be looking and thinking, oh, that camera angle looks really brilliant. Or what that person said there, I'm not too sure about it. So it's not even like negative judgment, but it's just the opinion or something, right? And then being afraid that it's going to come back to me and people saying it to me was stopping me from doing it. So it's only when I reflected on it, sat down and thought, hang on a minute, am I doing that? Am I being judgmental here? And therefore, that's why I'm experiencing back in return. And I thought, dissolve it, let it go, just put it out there, share it because you want to share it, and not come from that point of view. And the whole thing's changed. I started doing videos, started doing podcasting. And that is an example of, reflective. What was going on in the universe is a reflection. It's only when I looked at that reflection, I thought, oh, it's me. I gotta check this out, right?
But you know what? That is a beautiful and really powerful point that you made there. Everything that we like about someone we see is in us. Everything that we hate about someone we don't like is within us, right? And they're the two extremes, okay? Right? And everything in between, right? And this is exactly the point about, your mind is a mirror to the universe. You are a reflection of everything outside of you and everything. And it's up to you to really project the bits that you feel are the most conscious, right? And try to filter out the things that are, if I was to say unconscious, but in a kind of in a similar vein, all right? So that is down to you. And Just be mindful of that. Next time you meet somebody and there's something you don't like about them, ask yourself the question before you open your mouth and say anything: what is it about that person that I don't like that is in me? Right? And you'll find It's the same, right?
Exactly.
It's that same thing. And the thing that you don't like about yourself the most, you will hate in others the most. And which is why where you tend to find people that are very similar in mindset, attitude, energy, persona, and so on, tend not to get on all the time, right? But it's not always the case. This is not a binary black and white formula, right? It's just an example, right? Where it can happen, right? Where likes kind of repel. But at the same time, likes can like. All right. So you don't have to follow any kind of mantra. You don't have to put this limiting belief in your mind. You don't have to set a rigid formula around this, because it's all bullshit. It's all man-made. You can change it. Your energy, you're fluid. You're superfluous, man. You're not bound by this body, so don't be bound by it. Allow yourself to flow freely, and allow yourself to recognize spirit in others, and allow them to see the spirit in you. Why? How? Through love. Right? Because that's the only thing that melts all the ice barriers, all the ice walls, right? And then nothing is left. It becomes wallless, it's boundless, right? And all of a sudden, now you are part of everything. Now, whatever you see, you can reflect out, and you now start to merge into this ocean of consciousness through this mirror of your mind, right? And you can control what you don't want to put out there anymore. And guess what happens? When you stop, right, being negative, you stop attracting negative. When you start being positive, you start attracting positive. When you're in a bad state, guess what happens? You're going to attract equal-minded people. So when you're at the bottom, when you're bottom of the barrel, guess what? You're going to, all the people that are going to suck the energy out of you, that all want to dump all their shit on you, are going to come to you. Why? Because they want someone else to wallow in their shit as well, right? But then, right, when you are up and you are positive, guess what? You're going to attract people that are vibing, that are energetic, that are happy, joyful, blissful, right? And living their life to the best possible, right? And you're going to attract that energy. So be mindful, right? That mind, being that mirror to the universe, is going to start attracting and repelling that. This is the true law of attraction, right? This is what it's really based on. It's not about, I want to put out there, I want a new car, right? Right? Because again, you're just focusing on materiality. We already said, you've got to recognize the spirit, you've got to recognize the materiality, you've got to honor both of them. Enjoy the sense gratification experience that we come here to enjoy on Mother Earth, right? It is a privilege and an honor and an absolute joy to be in this physical realm, to be able to have these sense gratifications, but don't be bound by it, right? That's really the key, right? So allow yourself to be free, right? Allow that mind to expand itself, right? So that you can become part of that ocean of consciousness, the universe.
No, absolutely, man. It's just so interesting that it's when you do start to, it's like you said, earlier on you mentioned about a midlife crisis, midlife crisis, right? Where it's that moment, isn't it? When you just pause for a moment and you go in and you're being reflective. It's that's giving you the answer there. That is when you look inside. If you look at what's going on within yourself, is how you're potentially viewing the world. So if that bit inside you changes, the way you view the world is going to change. The lens changes. And that's a nice way to look at this. That your mind is a mirror to the universe. Look within. Acknowledge what's going on there, and just think, hang on, where am I? What am I doing here? And is this something that I'm putting out there? Is this the way I'm looking at the world through these filters? Yeah. Like somebody might be angry for some reason, and then they just see anger everywhere, right? Because they haven't addressed it. They haven't looked at why they're being angry in the first place. So, look at yourself, look at others, and then adapt. I know it's one of the things that one of our close colleagues, Suki, says as well. So, and it's just a reflective thought that, we can share with the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's so much in this koan because it's heavily loaded. We're talking about the universe. So everything that is everything is part of this equation, really. But the key thing is really kind of not to lose the thread of the what I say the highest teaching here, which kind of leads me on to the reading the actual koan itself, because I think this is kind of a pertinent point to kind of lay it out. So on page 516 and 517, it goes, when you place a vase full of flowers in a room and spray the flowers with water, you'll notice how the water droplets sit harmoniously on the flower petals and their leaves. Take one droplet of water glistening on a flower's petal and zoom in on it. Notice how it contains a reflection of everything else in the room. It reflects the ceiling, the walls, the windows, the door, the flowers, the furnishings, the appliances, and the other water droplets. It acts as a vessel to reflect everything in the room, but grasps onto none of it, just like a mirror. And just like it, you are a mirror to everything that is happening in your room, or should I say, universe. Now, that is easy to see on a physical and mental level, but it gets more exciting on an ethereal level. Our brains are made up of water and fat and insulate a complex web of neural networks, which, when activated, are responsible for generating electrical signals that are carried through these neural pathways to control your body and its limbs, and therefore its actions. The brain is an organ that in itself is simple, yet there is something that is operating at a higher intelligence in this space. Have you ever wondered where your thoughts come from? Have you ever wondered how geniuses come up with the marvelous inventions and ideas? Well, it does not come from a lump of water, fat, and electrical signals alone. There is a high intelligence which our brain allows us to access, which is what I refer to as the mind. The brain is like a door, and when opened, the mind is the wallless, floorless, ceilingless room on the other side, where every thought ever thought exists, where everything that ever existed exists. And the amazing thing is that you can cultivate the capability to access it through no-mindedness. Interesting thought that to get into your mind, you must have no mind. But this is alluding to the fact that in order to access this part of yourself, you must use self-mastery practices such as mindfulness and meditation to train your conscious mind, in brackets, your protective mind, close bracket, to rest and move aside and allow your unconscious mind, open bracket, the universe, or what I like to refer to as one consciousness, close bracket, to come through. And just like that, you start to see the possibility that everything is in the universe. And if your mind is a mirror to it, then you can access anything in it. Well, that's the whole idea, for you to tap into your infinite potential, one consciousness, and simply access it.
Wow. That's a brilliant summary of everything you shared. Thank you for sharing that, Sifu Lak. It's an honor to hear it from the horse's mouth, as they say, right? And for anybody who's interested, obviously you could go to martialmindpower.com or go to amazon.com, get hold of the books. This particular book is called The Art of Thinking Without Thinking. It's a massive book with, koans. I keep saying it wrong. Koan, right?
I might be saying it wrong for all I know.
Yeah,
koans.
And, it's one of those things where you could just open a random page and just read it and get inspired. And that's certainly how a lot of your students have been using it as well, right? So, it's go get it. It's a good book. And then obviously on martialmindpower.com, there's a whole bunch of others that you can look into as well to get these amazing, inspiring truth bombs, inspirational bombs.
Wisdom bombs.
Wisdom bombs is the word I was looking for. It slipped my mind. So on that note, if there's anything else you want to say, Sifu, or we will join everybody again on the next podcast.
Everything that had to be said, I think, has been said for now. And really, I'd like to just thank all the viewers and the listeners for taking the time to listen to this podcast. And hopefully you've taken something of value away, and something that will enrich you, and have something that will leave a positive imprint on your body, your mind, and your spirit. And you can take that forwards and share that with other people, because now that you understand it, it's yours, okay? And you do with it as you please. right? And when you've got a gift and you can start to recognize that, then you've got an obligation to give it away. So as I say, share alike. So yeah, spread the wisdom. Ultimately, this is about creating a ripple in the ocean of consciousness and spreading that. So if you're inspired by something, if you're empowered by something, if you're educated by something here, then spread it, because that's exactly what this is about. So on that note, from me, thank you so much.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Share, like, and comment, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much.